I think the hardest season was probably kind of in the middle. The startup years were, I say, fine. Everything was really exciting. Everything was new. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted the systems to play out. So there was a ton of front loading effort into designing our systems, looking at our metrics, being very strategic about hires and who's coming in and how we're managing patient flow. And then as you grow, you find that your systems start to break. But time available to maybe fix those systems is now more limited. And that's when I started to find it was a bit of a struggle.
All right, joining me this week is Dr. Jordan Sanders from Knox Mountain Dentistry. Jordan, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Michael. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for asking. It's been a minute. The last episode you were on, you were what year?
5 years.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't. It's a long way to come from signing a lease at the height of COVID to being where we're at now. So life's too short, as they say.
Yeah, it goes by super fast. So right now, what's been taking up most of your mental space?
I would say we're kind of in this transition right now where we're moving from this idea of being a dental startup into being a more established practice. It's been a busy year. Like the office itself is basically at capacity. So my biggest headache is now figuring out what to do now that we're full and I don't have anywhere to expand, how we manage that. But other than that, it's been a juggling act between this and some of the teaching that I've been doing on the side. So I started doing some courses and speaking for some companies. So I'm kind of now splitting my time between the office and what I'm doing now with the education stuff.
Interesting. So right now you're at capacity. You hit that when?
Probably last year, as far as the number of ops that we have operating at any given time, the number of staff that I have, we're full every day. Like we have 7 ops, 2 dentists on. So they're running out of 2 ops each and 3 hygienists pretty much every day. So now it's just a matter of figuring out how to handle these problems that we never had, which was, hey, I need to reschedule my appointment. When's your next available time? Oh, it's 3 months from now. I know that that's been an issue for other practices in Kelowna where I live, just because they're older practices and they've got thousands and thousands of patients. But I didn't think that I'd be there maybe as quick as I am.
So are you thinking to expand, open up, move, or?
It's a bit of an interesting mental juggling act because I'd love to. I can't realistically move. There's no reason to go and rebuild. I mean, we're in a perfect location. We've got parking. We've got a lot of things that are a bit unique for the downtown part of Kelowna. And I would love to expand. At least I tell myself that because it's always nice to have more space.
Yeah.
But I know that comes with more staff and more other things. And so it's kind of this act of, do I really need to expand or am I able to just figure out how to be content operating within the space that I have here? I don't have anywhere to expand right now, so that decision is made for me, which is great. But if one of my neighbors in the building where I am ever decide to vacate, I'm going to have to do something.
Interesting. And then you mentioned teaching. How did that come about?
About 2 years ago, I went down to a course in the US and I've always kind of been a hobbyist 3D printer. So I've been 3D printing. Like there's one sitting over my shoulder on this side over here where my kids and I print toys and stuff at home. It kind of came to the dental realm about 7-8 years ago. And I started with that and I started doing more and more of it. Basically over the last year went from outsourcing a lot of our lab work to now having essentially a completely functional commercial lab within the office. We're doing all of our own stuff now. And that just kind of spurred this thing of other people wanting to learn 3D printing and there not being a lot of maybe resources out there to learn it. We ran a couple courses and then I got picked up by Align and Nobel to do some speaking for them. So I'm talking with them about their 3D printing and design. It's just kind of a fun little side thing that I like to do. It mixes it up.
Yeah. How does that happen? If you don't mind me asking, you're doing a hobby, you like it, and then you get picked up. What does that mean?
I had this whole concept of wanting to teach since way back in university. Like I wanted some level of teaching in my life. And I think just the fact that what I found myself in as far as the 3D printing and design stuff was so niche that there wasn't really anybody else in Canada much doing it. And so I just started kind of talking about it and talking with friends and local stuff here in Kelowna and then, running a course for a big group of dentists. We did that twice so far. And then because of the nature of these products, obviously resellers are interested in getting involved and they start slow, but then they kind of see what's going on. And then all of a sudden now they want, they ask me to speak about it all over the place, which has been a lot of interesting growth over the last 12 months.
Yeah. If you can pinpoint what has been two things to you that have been super interesting in that growth pattern?
Being able to finally have the opportunity to like, you see that light bulb go off in other people's heads when you're explaining something. You get to see in real time their understanding clicking together. Like that's the coolest thing for me. I've always enjoyed being able to share that knowledge and have people actually benefit from it. I just think that dentistry is it can be a very, lonely profession if we choose to live within our own walls of our practice. So it's nice to go out and talk with other people and, meet people that I would never have had the opportunity to meet otherwise. So those have been the biggest changes. It's not just drill and fill dentistry every day anymore. It gets to be mixed up with these other little things.
That's nice, man.
Yeah.
So then if we were to kind of like transition to the practice or ownership, when you think about ownership today, what feels fundamentally different compared to earlier seasons?
I am very proud of the office that I built. I have an incredible team, but there's constant pressures and stresses that I think maybe weren't as much of an issue years ago. Like there's constant staffing shortages. We're always dealing with this concept of there not being enough people to literally work the jobs that we need them to work. So there's been huge wage pressures over the last 5 years. The changes in the cost of payroll in that period has been unfortunately dramatic. Most positions have looked at 25 to 35% raises over the last 5 years, which is a lot. There's always someone that needs you when you're an owner. And there's always this balance of trying to keep the wheels on the bus, I guess. You want people to be happy. You want your patients to be happy. You want your staff to be happy. You want to be happy. And juggling all of those sometimes can be very exhausting. It's a mental load thing. I don't think running a business has ever been easy for anybody, but there's a lot of expectations in our realm now. Like you got to have some kind of online presence. If you're not doing dances on TikTok, you're behind the times, right? And the expectations from our patient base is high. Like they see these things online. They want what they want and they're going to tell you about it. It's not that we've lost trust in the profession or that patients are not trusting of what we do as dentists. I just think they need to be convinced a little bit more these days.
Okay, gotcha. And so then where do you notice yourself making decisions faster or with less emotional weight than before?
I've always been I'll call it control freak because that's like something that will resonate with a lot of dentists.
Yeah.
The idea of trying to navigate all of these decisions on my own. Probably the biggest thing I had to do is let go of that control. Like the moment that I implemented the management structure that we have at the office was the moment that my mental load went down significantly. So we've got people on my team now that handle a lot of the day-to-day decision-making and things that I don't need to be involved in because we spent the time building up the systems for it. I'm trying to get more of my time back. That's been the kind of ultimate goal because there's only so much of me to go around. And I need to be able to maximize my time and do the things that I actually want to do, not necessarily feel like I need to do, but am unwilling to relent the control to get it done.
Yeah. In the future, Jordan, how does that look like for you? Like where you're like, I'm doing everything that I want to do with the time that I have. If you can encapsulate like everything, even like just 90% family, or would it look more like just teaching and practice runs? How does that look?
I mean, I love what I do. I don't know if that's a unique perspective among my colleagues, but I really enjoy dentistry. My retirement plan is that I'm not going to retire. I'm going to establish my working life to be something that I can sustain forever. So yeah, it's kind of a mix of all of those things. It's not, I like the speaking. It's great. I hate the traveling. I have a lot of really firm boundaries around that. I like working at the office. Would I like working a little bit less? Maybe. Yeah. And then, family time. Obviously, my kids are only going to be this young once. So trying to really prioritize the time that I spend with them. It's just a bit of a juggling act, honestly, but it's not a bad juggling act. It just feels like I have to be very firm in my boundaries with myself because as a yes man, as someone that's wants to do these things, it becomes very easy for me to stretch myself too thin.
You would consider yourself like a yes man?
Less now than I used to be. I think people pleasing is a chronic issue in people that are drawn to the dental profession. And it's taken a lot of years of picking that apart to maybe have it be less of a thing now. So yeah, I mean, I like doing the things, but I really only do them now if I want to do them, not if somebody else wants me to do them.
How do you get to that part? Because I feel like you mentioned you set firm boundaries and sometimes you set them and I don't know, are they as firm as you think they are? Because you start bending a little bit more and more. Boundaries are still there, but they're bending a little bit, I guess. Or maybe you broke them. I don't know. But how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like bending of boundaries is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just you have to trust in yourself to be able to make the right decision when the time comes. You will bend your boundaries if it's like, yep, I can justify this. This makes sense. I have a specific goal here. Okay, like I'll do that. And I've done that a couple of times where it's like, can you come out to this talk on, Victoria Island or Vancouver Island for this one day? And it's like, okay, well, yes, I can. I'll fly in and out that same day. It's not going to eat into anything else I was doing. I'd like to do that. But I think just being nicer to yourself when these kinds of things come up. We all make decisions with the tools that we have and the knowledge that we have at the time. And you just got to trust that you have your own best interests at heart. And that's kind of how I do it. I just say, does this align with what I really want to do? Am I going to be on this plane or doing whatever, just cursing myself for having done this? Or can I accept that? And that's kind of the lens that I look at it through. As long as I'm not going to regret this, then it's probably fine. But yeah, there's definitely been some hard no's. And it's like traveling overseas or doing these other things where it's like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
Okay, interesting. So then take us back to a season where ownership felt heavier than it should have. How did that weight show up day to day in your life?
Honestly, it was terrible. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think any dental startup runs into these issues because we're not trained business people. We get out of dental school and we're kind of expected to be able to run a business without a lot of knowledge. And it's just not knowing what you don't know and kind of being confronted with those limits to your knowledge in real time. I think the hardest season was probably kind of in the middle. The startup years were, I say, fine. Everything was really exciting. Everything was new. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted the systems to play out. So there was a ton of front-loading effort into designing our systems, looking at our metrics, being very strategic about hires and who's coming in and how we're managing patient flow. And then as you grow, you find that your systems start to break. But time available to maybe fix those systems is now more limited. And that's when I started to find it was a bit of a struggle. The business still needs to be run. It's not a well-oiled machine yet because we're growing and that presents with other problems, but I don't have the time to fix them necessarily. And so, I tried to do that myself for a long time. And then I just kind of realized that I needed help. I needed more people because I'm not an Energizer bunny like some other dentist business owners out there. And so I had to kind of relinquish some of that control back to my team. And that was great. That was the best decision I ever made. They are excellent at seeing things through lenses that I might have never even considered. And I think that we did really well because of that. But that was a hard thing to wrap my brain around. Just the control, the releasing back to the people that I trained.
Yeah. Interesting. So then you mentioned you designed systems and then they eventually started breaking. What were some of those systems that started breaking that you feel like maybe you see nowadays are popular or people lean heavy towards them and you're like, they're going to break if you do that? Or maybe just mention the ones that broke for you.
Yeah, we had systems for everything. I think the biggest one was like, when do we hire people? At what layers, what metrics, what positions of the practice do we start adding more staff? When do we hire our next hygienist? When do we need to add an admin person? What I found in that was that the ideas that were out there in the quote unquote, dental world about what was right and wrong in that didn't jive with what I was trying to accomplish. So the example I can give there is with my receptionist or my front end staff, we provide a very specific front end experience to our patients. It's a lot more patient leaning than maybe other offices might be. It spends a lot more time. We do a lot of extra things with insurance. It's just more labor intensive. And so this whole idea of, I shouldn't hire a additional office administrator until this level of office production or this level of new patient flow, it stopped being a thing that worked because I needed more man hours. And that just kind of played out in every position in the office because we try to operate within this different niche than maybe some of the other practices in town. And that led to more demands on time. So I've probably got more team members than other offices of the same size might, but I'm okay with that now because it definitely fits with what we're trying to accomplish. And then everything else, like scheduling systems, we tried block scheduling for a while. that stopped working because we had too many new patients. Our new patient flow has been 60 to 80 new patients a month for 5 years. It just hasn't stopped. And so we were running into this issue of we just can't see these people fast enough. So we had to kind of switch away from block scheduling back to this more or less rigid system. And then staff wages, how often do we give raises? How do you give raises? That fell apart pretty fast once it became clear that there was a chronic staffing shortage. And the last thing that you wanted to do was to lose your good people to another office in town for $1 an hour kind of thing. It's been a bit of a twist my rubber arm kind of thing to get changes in the office because sometimes you just gotta.
Yeah. That's interesting though. It sounds like, Jordan, even though there's people telling you, because I feel like a lot of the times, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's really good systems and maybe like, I want to say a huge majority of people are like, these are really good systems. Consultants are saying these are really good systems. Everybody's like living and dying by that system. They're trying to push their practice's personality into that system. But for you, it was more like, hey guys, practice personality comes first. These systems, as cool as they are, they ain't working for us right now. That's what you did.
Yes.
Interesting.
First and foremost, it was, I call it the energy of the practice. Our practice has a very specific energy. It's very evident in the people that work there. You were talking earlier about all the tattoos. Like, we're all tattooed maniacs in the office. Like, it's just a different type of feel. I wanted to break away from this whole concept of, dentist as this stuffy profession type thing. So we're listening to heavy metal music in the ops sometimes. Like, it's a different way of kind of going about dental practice. And I'm very unapologetic about that. This is my practice. I'm going to work here. I want it to be an energy that we like. And it just so happens that our patients really like it too. But that means we attract a specific patient base, which is awesome. I really like the type of people that we bring in to the doors. I think it's important to remember why you built your practice in the first place. Most likely you didn't build it because money was your end goal. I mean, maybe you did, but I'm assuming that there was some other motivator there. You wanted to build a specific type of feeling. You wanted to work in a specific type of environment, and that we protect very powerfully.
Okay, I like that, man. Let's go to the front end experience and raises. How did you know not to like, hey guys, we're going to have to continue to roll with this and run with it, adjust our experience or adjust the way we do raises, even though, because I mean, you can see it as like, hey, the team's calling the shots. And I don't want that. I'm letting go of control. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing to let go of that type of control with raises. I don't know. But how did you know, hey, let's get rid of those systems instead?
I pivoted the system. So our raise system in the office is a bit unique. It's an achievement-based raise system, meaning that there's a number of different, I don't call them exams, but they're tasks that you have to complete that are worth a certain amount of a permanent raise. And so the idea would be we audit how you schedule patients for a month, and we see if you follow the system. And then if you do that, that's worth 50 cents an hour permanent raise. We listen to how you talk with patients on the phone. Do you follow our scripts when we need them? Do you use the proper language? And then it just kind of keeps going down that. How's your treatment planning? How is your ability to fill short notice cancels? What's your verbiage like? It is systematic in that way. The way that I kind of pivoted is I set boundaries around how it works. Like, I never have conversations with the staff in my office about, hey, I want more money, because it's very readily available to them if they choose to do it. We hire them at their wage. They only get a raise if they complete one of these tasks. The cap of the wage that they can earn within the office follows our province's annual wage survey. So they survey all the dentists in the province once a year about the wages, and I set mine at whatever the 75th percentile of those numbers are. So I pay more than maybe average, but it's systematized in that way so that it's not meant to just go into the ether. It's based on data.
I like that a lot. So then you implemented the raises, that started happening, and then your front end experience. And then you also mentioned like the scripts and everything like that is very different. By the way, did you hire like a consultant for all that, or no, you just knew what to do?
I guess we did do some training, usually through like online videos. There was a couple programs that we did participate in, and we took from them what we thought worked and we dumped the rest. I think it's a bit of an amalgamation of a bunch of different people, but yeah, a lot of it is just self-written. Like, we put it together ourselves.
Like that. So
But they put it together. I think that's the other thing. So one of the raise systems is build a system. I have the staff doing most of this for me, because they know what works and that gives them the opportunity to kind of seize a bit of control on how they operate.
Yeah. Let me ask you, with that, you're letting the staff do it. You're giving them a lot more control, right? In the sense of more responsibilities. How do you know with staff members, like, hey, it's working or it's not working, but at the same time, they're just giving you excuses?
I think my role in all of this pivoted away from systems design and systems implementation more into auditing. What I spend most of my time doing now is auditing. So it's looking at the system, seeing what's working, what's not, listening to the feedback. And my team works very hard. And I mean, human nature is human nature. Sometimes people try to slack off a little bit, but for the most part, they hold each other accountable. I just check in now, and they're the ones that tell me or say this isn't working, but they'll usually come up with an alternative. We have what's called a 1-3-1 rule in the office, which is if you're going to come to me with a problem, so one problem, you need to have 3 solutions and then the one solution that you think is the most practical of those 3. So if they want to discuss something, the 1-3-1 comes into play. They know that I'm going to be asking them what they think we should be doing instead.
I like that. Do you ever have to say like, that's not the best solution?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, there's metrics, right? Like, I'm not going to give every hygienist 90 minutes for a prophy, even though I'm sure they would love it. When I ask them to add scanning of all of our recall patients without increasing the time that they get to do it, we got to figure out how to make that work, because I'm not necessarily going to disrupt the entire hygiene schedule because I now want to scan everybody at their recall, but I want to scan everybody at their recall. So we have to figure it out. And so that's really what we do, is we figure it out.
So then throughout this, what change did you resist the most? Now looking back, you're like, man, I wish I would have done that sooner.
That's a good question. I mean, I think probably the ability or the need to have to see everything and be involved in everything, to feel like I was understanding what was going on within the walls of the practice. Like, I always felt I had to participate in every meeting. I had to be CC'd on every email, part of every conversation, in order to make it so that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I just now don't do that. I don't necessarily participate in every internal staff meeting that happens at the office. If there's a front end meeting that needs to happen, I'm not there. My office manager does that. She's an office administrator prior to being an office manager. She understands it better than I do anyway. So, it's kind of this moving away from this control need, honestly, letting myself be okay being informed, but not necessarily present for every single thing that happens within the clinic.
What were you afraid of?
Someone imploding the thing that I took huge risk to put together. You're very emotionally invested when you're taking out 7 figures of loans to build a practice from scratch in a saturated market with a really good reputation 5 years in, and just hoping that somebody doesn't blow it up in your face. It's trusting that people have the best intentions and that they're doing the best that they can. But yeah, it's always a fear. Like, having to step in and check the temperature to make sure that stuff's not going sideways is always a hard thing. I have to remind myself sometimes to not interject myself when I'm not needed, because I feel like that undermines the authority and the abilities of your teammates that you've trained to do these jobs. If they feel like if you poke your head in, it's almost like you maybe don't trust them to do what needs to be done.
This decision that you made where you're like, I'm going to relinquish control, right? What did it cost you in the short term, either emotionally, financially, or relationally?
I had to spend a lot of time being comfortable with mistakes being made. The people that are learning a new role, or they're stepping into something that's maybe a bit different, they're going to do things without maybe knowing the consequences all the time. I mean, there's nothing major, but just like little things like that. And being comfortable having a lot of conversations, sometimes difficult conversations, because people needed to be like, no, you can't do that. But I mean, there wasn't a lot of short-term costs other than just talking myself into it. The gains were instant. The gains were time and me having to spend less time. I'm not trying to write emails between patients. I'm not trying to participate in this Zoom meeting with this manufacturer on my lunch hour. I now get to kind of take a step back and actually just focus on the dentistry, which is more fun, honestly.
Big time, big time. Nice, man. So your team in the front, how big is that?
There's 4 of them, plus, I guess, my office manager. So we have 4 staff members, 4 admin, for 2 dentists and 3 hygienists.
Gotcha. So then how big is your team?
There's 18 of us.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
including me.
big team. Your front end experience. Walk me through that. What does that look like? Because you mentioned it was really unique.
What I wanted when I set up the office was two very specific things. I wanted the experience that every single person got from calling the office to coming through the doors to getting their first treatment, whatever that is, to be always the same, always consistent. So that basically means that, our new patient intake is always the same from the first call. The way that our phone routing works is new patients have a completely independent routing line, and they're the priority call. If a little NP shows up on the call display, that call gets answered on the first ring every time. We do a lot of preemptive insurance verification for our patients. We try to take the insurance mystification away and make it so that they're understanding exactly what their costs will be. The thing is that my office operates, like we have provincial fee guides for our fees in British Columbia, and we operate at 15% over that. So it's more expensive to come to my office than it might be to other offices in town. And a lot of that just kind of plays out in what we offer the patients with our conversations, with our staff time. And we don't get many complaints about that. Once they've gotten all their information, we've gotten their old x-rays, we've helped them with their medical dental history, they come in without fail. When they come through the door, they're offered either a coffee or sparkling water. They sit in the waiting room. It's just meant to be a very personable experience. So I use what are called touch points, basically touch points with the brand. So we try and have between 7 and 15 touch points for patients before they're even sitting in the dental chair. The idea being there is I want the experience for that patient to be amazing before they've even met me. So it doesn't really matter who I am. If I'm grumpy that day or if I'm tired or whatever, they're already really impressed with the practice as a whole, that I'm just an accessory past that.
So touch points look like what?
Consistent branding, feelings, experiences, smells, what they're seeing when they walk through the door. Like I said, being offered drinks. What's the new patient intake experience like? What is the attitude of the receptionists like? Are they smiling and laughing? And what's the music like? Does the office smell like an operating room, or does it not? Just little things like that. Our hygiene program is designed to be as pleasant as possible. There's all these little things that we try to implement to make the majority of the time that the patient spends in our practice feel positive.
Was there any specific touch point that you guys implemented or pivoted or moved or anything like that where you're like, oh, we saw total gains once we did that?
Yes. In short, the insurance verification stuff is huge. It's incredibly time consuming. We were running into this issue of I can only have a staff member sitting on hold with an insurance company for 2 hours at a time so often. And we found that once we implemented AI into that realm, it was game changer. Saved like 35 hours a month. It was bananas. We use a system now that does insurance verification with an AI agent, where the AI agent calls the insurance company and it sits on hold for a couple hours and it talks to the person on the other side, and then it emails us all of the breakdowns and information in a PDF. That was world changing. So that basically freed up 35 hours a month for my front end team to be office facing, not on the phone with an insurance company.
Yeah. What's the system that you're using for that?
It's a Toronto-based company called Clear, like Cleer. They're just a couple of guys that built this thing, but it works so well. It's genius. They were incredibly intelligent to put it together. That was a big win for the girls up front. They were stoked to have that system.
Wow. And that Clear is specifically designed or made just for that?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. So any other systems that you utilize in the front, like the new patient intake form, things like that, that has not changed since you started, and which systems or companies have changed?
Our phones have been Mango since we opened. We really like that system. Works great. You and I have spoken previously about Oryx. I've been with them since I opened the doors, and they're constantly improving and changing their software. They've been staples, and they do pretty much everything we need them to do. The other things that we keep adding that are changing things in real time right now are all AI based. AI note scribes for our appointments. That's been enormous. Some of the AI applications that the phone service is used to measure tonality and warmth and how the call is going and give people active feedback on that. And then, the insurance verification stuff. So it just keeps getting layered. And there's going to be more, I'm sure, over the next couple of years. but it's saving a ton of time. That's probably been the most impactful stuff.
Nice. When it came to Oryx, was it kind of easy for your team to like learn that whole process?
Didn't really have a choice, right? Like we didn't transition from another system, which I think is where most people really struggle because they get so used to one system. And Oryx has changed a lot over the last 5 years. They have made a lot of big improvements. And I remember it went from the early days where, I would email the CEO's husband, who is also the back-end engineer for Oryx, and now they're a much bigger operation than they were then. And it's just been kind of cool to see. It's a really good piece of software, and I don't know that I would have any intention of changing. It incorporates all of these extra little bits that you'd have to buy other softwares for, like text messaging, review generation, KPI stuff. It kind of does all that for us now, which is nice to have it all in one spot.
Nice, man. That's really, really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So then what belief about ownership, let's talk about from the moment like you started our first interview, right? Till now, what belief about ownership has permanently changed for you, but you still see 90% of people still believing it?
I think people think that ownership is this solution to all of the things that they've struggled with when they were an associate, if that makes sense. I feel like the newer generation of dentists is actually moving away from this idea of ownership. I think it's too expensive. Dental school tuition is too expensive. They don't want to acquire more debt. And so they're learning to be happy as an associate. My biggest thing was I thought that ownership would give me this thing I was missing when I was an associate. And I think that's partially true. I have a lot of ability to do what I want now, which is great, but it's definitely way more expensive to own something. And it's way riskier to own something. You're kind of locked in. You need to build this practice. You don't have a choice. It doesn't matter how you're feeling about it that day. You got to do it. Whereas I think, the ability to just go home at the end of the day and maybe not have to think about your job, which you can do as an associate, is pretty freaking great. And there's definitely days where I'm jealous of that. I cut paychecks to my associate now, and I was like, oh, that's more than I paid myself. That's awesome. That's great. You got to do it for more than just this idea of money and control. There has to be more to it than that, because that gets old fast. And yeah, you're building an asset. Yes, it pays for itself eventually, but it takes years and a lot of gray hair. So I think if we spent a bit more time as dentists working on ourselves in the early days of our practices or early days of our careers to be legitimately content with what we have and what we're doing, we'd be able to approach ownership with a completely different lens. I don't know that necessarily as many people would do it. The consolidators, the dental corps of the world, they're right in the sense that dentists might be great business owners in the early days, but maybe not over 25 years. They just want to do their work and go home, and I get it.
Yeah. Do you see that for yourself? Like maybe 20 years from now, you're like, yeah, I kind of just maybe want to do that.
Probably not. I'm very uniquely driven in my own way. I like the flexibility of being able to do what I want. And honestly, I just don't believe that my team would be taken care of in the way that I'd want them to be if it was a consolidator that was pulling the strings. Small private practice, one dentist, two dentists, partners even, like that can be great. And I think that's probably where I would live. If I was to go anywhere, it might be splitting the responsibilities with somebody. But I want to be able to set a schedule for myself for the rest of my life that is not going to make me burn out. It's going to let me kind of explore new things and do whatever I want on a whim. And I need to own to be able to do that.
Yeah. So it's more about flexibility. Interesting, Jordan, that when you started, you didn't think at this point you'd have this much, for like lack of a better word, like love or like heart for your team.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you're like, hey, I don't think somebody else would take care of them the way, and not just monetarily, right? But like more so, I don't think people would take care of them, consider them. These people who were strangers before, you never knew them, right? Now it's like family kind of a thing. So I guess in ownership, it kind of always changes a little bit, right? What would you call it? Like your North Star? Or
yeah, your guiding light. Yeah, I think it has to. You need more motivation than just showing up to pay your bills. Like there's got to be a people side of it. We've always called our practice very human-centric. At the core of it, it's about making sure that as people, we are content. And that starts with my team. It's not that I don't put patients first, because I think when it comes to their treatment planning, yes, okay, that's their first. when it comes to how that patient brings their energy into our space, I protect the team above all else. I don't have a lot of patience for people that bring negativity into the office. And, I'm fortunate at the time now that I can be selective of who I let through the front doors. And I think that's what makes it so great. Like, we get to work on and with people that are appreciative of what you do, nice human beings, and not maybe what some other mentalities out there might be where every patient is someone you need to keep beyond all else. Our priorities are a little different in that way. I don't want miserable people in my practice. Life's too short.
No, that's true, man. It's interesting. Do you think it's harder for us to be content now because of social media? Like, we're on it, we're marketing on it. We're also looking at other practices. I'm looking at Jordan's practice, right? And I'm like, oh man, now he's a teacher. And then, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult place to be if you're not really careful. It's hard not to compare ourselves to other people. Oh, this guy's doing all this implant dentistry, or this guy's doing, all this crazy stuff. And it's like, yeah, great, but is he happy? And that's kind of the unfortunate thing that I've seen with my peers is materially and on paper, they're very successful and they should be happy. They have everything and they're not. And it's like, okay, let's not get there. Let's figure out what we have to do to not be that. And is that working less? Is that pivoting away from clinical practice into something else? Is that hiring people to make my life easier? So those are all kind of questions that I come across in my thinking pretty often. It's like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to get to that point where I feel like showing up to work on a Monday is the last thing on the planet I want to do. I really like what I do. And I think I'm very fortunate to feel that way a decade into clinical practice.
I like that, man. So then right now, if someone listening is one step behind where you were, what's the one move they should make this week?
Oh man, one step behind, go to therapy, I guess, is probably the first thing. It's like, at the end of the day, everything starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the most important thing. It's being very intentional with what you're doing and why you're doing it, and asking yourself the hard questions of, are you doing this because you genuinely want to, or are you doing it because you're avoiding something else? And that was the hardest question I had to answer for myself. And it's what led me away from this whole kind of yes man mentality. I was just doing everything for everybody else and frying myself completely in the process. And so, yeah, I mean, it's spending that time to really understand what you want with your clinical practice and your office and your space. And if you're not there, what it would take to get there, and start doing that. Be intentional. That's the best advice I can give.
Do you think that's like sometimes hard when you're looking at it and you're like, man, I haven't even broken even yet. I'm struggling. Like, I'm still working another associate job a couple times out of the week and all these things, right? And the main thing all you want is like, I just want to make money. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to break even, take care of my employees. I would love to just do that. You know what I mean? So all they're thinking of is that aspect. So in that aspect, would you still be like, hey?
The unfortunate answer to that question is you just have to. There's nobody out there that's going to care more about your practice than you. And there's nobody out there that's going to come and save you. No consultant, none of these things is going to change your practice if you're not in the space to want to change it. And so, yeah, it's hard. Practice ownership is freaking hard. And I was fortunate that it wasn't as hard as it could be. But, in those situations like the one you described, there's just a certain amount of, you just got to do it. You got yourself in this situation and you have two choices. You move forward or you quit. And that is a conversation that you need to have with yourself. And if you're going to decide to move forward, it's about finding out what that looks like. It's all internal self-search. It's this idea that, yes, you might be barely breaking even, but you knew that coming into this. You knew that this was going to be a thing. You knew you were going to struggle. So struggle and figure out a way to balance that out for yourself in other ways. It's okay for things to be hard. What a privilege it is for things to be hard sometimes, because it means you're building something worthwhile. And you just kind of got to look and think about what that freedom, the reason that you built that practice in the first place, what was that offering you? Because I mean, if you did it because you thought you're going to be rich, then you're screwed. You might get there eventually, but you're going to burn out or fall apart before that happens. But if you built it because you had a vision and there's something that you specifically wanted to accomplish, then start accomplishing that. Focus on that. Have that be the driving force that pushes you forward. because the money comes. It's more about if you're going to fail before you get there because you can't reconcile with yourself.
That's good. That's really, really good. So our last guest left a question for you. This is Dr. Cindy Rask from Bespoke Dental. And she asked, what is one piece of equipment that you would like to have in your office right now?
Sprint Ray has their new Midas 3D printer. Well, I mean, it's been in the US for a year and change now, but we don't have it in Canada yet. I want that bad. I want 2 of them bad. That's the next thing on my list. I mean, I have everything else. That's the thing. There's no piece of equipment that I don't think I don't have.
Dealing with that one. Gotcha. Awesome, man. So before we wrap up, what's one question you'd like to ask for the next guest to answer?
I want to know one situation where they were faced with failure and how they dealt with it.
I'm going to put that in. Awesome, Jordan. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, where can people find you?
Easiest place to find me is on Instagram, either at Knox Mountain Dentistry, which is my dental practice, or at Send Dental Education, which is my dental teaching business. Both of those places are full of dad jokes and stupid reels, and it's not very dental. It's just kind of fun. But yeah, if there's any questions about that, just fire me a DM.
Nice. I'm going to go check it out for dad jokes. I like it, man. Awesome. So thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Always.